welcome to lesson 6 of the Master Key System. This is Dr. Lieven speaking to you for the VIP, and today we're going to focus on chapter 1, paragraph 29 through 33. And we're going to do this in our typical way, our turbo learning formula way, which is we first listen to the related paragraphs of a part which is part of a total chapter recording. There is a chapter 1 recording which has all 46 paragraphs. We listen to a small section of this, on average about 5 paragraphs. In this case, paragraph 29, 30, 31, 32, and paragraph 33. We then dive in sentence by sentence, even sometimes word by word, to come to understanding what is it that Charles Haanel, the author, is really saying. What is it he wants us to know? What is he revealing? Is he repeating a part? Is he adding a new discovery for us to be introduced to? That is what we do in that in-between section. Generally, that's about 20 minutes, max 25 minutes. And then we listen to the recording again. And the whole objective is so that you can notice in an approximate half hour, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more, in that half hour that you can go from no understanding or moderate understanding to a remarkable level of understanding or possibly full understanding just in a half hour. Now, you may need to do that half hour pattern over and over again a number of times. You may do it with one class more than with another because something just isn't sinking in. And you may use the knowledge you gain from other classes to then go back to a particular chapter 2 or paragraph or class to then see if you're going to understand it better. Because it's interlinked knowledge. As you gain insight into one paragraph, it automatically brightens your ability, empowers your ability to come to understand all other paragraphs. It's like a brilliant brain. So, let's go with paragraph 29 of chapter 1 of the Master Key System. The ability of the individual to think is his ability to act on the universal and bring into manifestation. Human consciousness consists only in the ability of man to think. Walker says, mind in and of itself is believed to be a subtle form of static energy, from which arises the activities called thought, which is the dynamic phase of mind. Mind is static energy, thought is dynamic energy. The two phases of the same thing. Thought is therefore the vibratory force formed by converting static mind into dynamic mind. As the sum of all attributes are contained in the universal mind, which is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, these attributes must be present at all times in their potential form in every individual. Therefore, when the individual thinks, the thought is compelled by its nature to embody itself in an objectivity or condition which will correspond with its origin. Every thought, therefore, is a cause, and every condition an effect. For this reason, it is absolutely essential that you can control your thoughts so as to bring forth only desirable conditions. All power is from within and is absolutely under your control. It comes through exact knowledge and by voluntary exercises of exact principles. It should be plain that when you acquire a thorough understanding of this law, and you're able to control your thought processes, you can apply it to any condition. In other words, you will have come into conscious cooperation with omnipotent law, which is the fundamental basis of all things. The ability of the individual to think is his ability to act on the universal and bring into manifestation. Human consciousness consists only in the ability of man to think. Walker says, mind in itself is believed to be a subtle form of static energy, from which arises the activities called thought, which is the dynamic phase of mind. Mind is static energy, thought is dynamic energy, the two phases of the same thing. Thought is therefore the vibratory force formed by converting static mind into dynamic mind. So, let's go back to the very beginning of this paragraph. It's a rather lofty or lengthy paragraph, and it is displaying yet another level of how our thinking influences what's happening around us. So, the ability of the individual to think, the capacity, the ability of us, we, and as an individual, as a person, our ability to think is our ability to act on the universal. So, with our thinking, we act on that universal intelligence, and as such, we bring into manifestation, we bring into creation, we bring into reality. So there is this substance in the universe. The substance in the universe needs to be acted upon. We need to create thoughts in order to bring motion into that substance, and through that we can take that substance into manifestation, into some reality. So our ability to think is our ability to be able to shape and bring universal substance into real, earthly, touchable things. Human consciousness, human intelligence consists only in the ability of us to think, in our capacity to think. So with that, he's also saying that's the only way we have human intelligence. That's the only way to have intelligence, to have consciousness, is through our capacity, our ability to think. The ability to think gives rise to our human consciousness, our human intelligence. Without our ability to think, there is no human consciousness. So human intelligence, human consciousness only consists in our ability to think. Walker says, mind in itself is believed to be a subtle form of static energy. Okay, so what is he saying here? Subtle form and static energy. Let's take a look at that. Static energy means it is not in motion. It's a reserve pool of energy, a sort of a vault full of energy. It's static, it's there available, but it's not in motion, it's not in use. And subtle form is subtle is delicate. It's not very not delicate and weak, but it's refined. We know if something has a subtle taste, it just has a nuance of that taste. So a subtle form of static energy, that is what mind is believed to be. Our mind being subtle and static energy, from which arises activities that are referred to as thought. So our mind, which is this subtle form of static energy, when it gets into action via thoughts, that is what creates the dynamic phase of the mind. And thought, which is the dynamic phase of mind. So mind in and of itself is static, still, potential energy. Thought is dynamic, applied, objective energy. These are two phases of the same thing, two realities of the same thing. Static mind, dynamic thought. Static in reserve, that's what the mind is energy in reserve. Thought is energy in action, is dynamic. Thought is therefore the vibratory force formed by converting static mind into dynamic mind. We have the static mind and we have the dynamic mind. The conversion is happening through that, what we call thought. Thought is the vibratory force, the engine, you could say. Thought is the engine that converts, it's the catalyzer, or the catalyst, or the transformer. That is what thought is, the vibratory force. What does it convert? It converts that static mind into dynamic mind. Or another way to look at it is, think of the mind for a moment as a car. A static car is a car that is just sitting there. It has the potential to drive, but it's not driving. It's sitting in the garage. Static mind, static car. Dynamic mind is like a dynamic car, is a car that is moving, is actually able to transport you or to get you to a certain place. Well, thought in that case is like the key, or is like the gas pedal, or is like the gasoline. Thought is therefore the force, the engine force that can convert your car from being a still car to a car that is moving, from a static car to a dynamic car. In case of the mind, thought is what changes your static mind into dynamic mind. As the sum of all attributes are contained in the universal mind, which is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, these attributes must be present at all times in their potential form in every individual. Therefore, when the individual thinks, the thought is compelled by its nature to embody itself in an objectivity or condition which will correspond with its origin. So here he's telling us yet another aspect of how our thought leads to result. The sum of all attributes, all the qualities regarding universal mind, the sum of all attributes is contained in the universal mind. All is all in all. It is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, and these attributes therefore must be present at all times in every individual in their full potential form. So the universal mind, or the universal intelligence, has these qualities, that omnipotence, that omniscient, and that omnipresent capacity, that capacity to be all the times in power, all the times of all knowing, and to be able to be everywhere, omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. Those qualities, because they're part of the universal mind, they have to at all times also be there in every individual, in every one of us, be there as potential capacity. And the capacity is precisely these attributes, these qualities, the quality of all knowing, the quality of all presence, the quality of all capacity. Those are qualities, they're attributes, and because they're available in the universal mind, they have to be available in every individual. Therefore, when we as an individual person think, that thought is compelled by its nature, by its character, to embody, to make real, to incorporate itself in an objectivity, an object, a result, or a condition which corresponds with its origin, with the origin of the thought. The thought is compelled by its nature to become real, to embody itself in a result or a condition which corresponds with its origin. So when we as an individual, when we think, automatically those thoughts, they are in relationship with naturally the thinking that we did, and these thoughts, simply because of the way they are, compelled by its nature, simply because of the way they are, they must become reality. They must become embodied. They must become form. How do they become form? Well, they'll either become a result or a condition. A result, an object, or a condition. Thoughts, by their nature, by their origin, automatically manifest themselves into an object or a condition. There is one more comment I would like to add here related to the very last sentence, the part which will correspond with its origin. I see two possible meanings. In this case, we have an objectivity or condition that will correspond with its origin, a result or a condition which will correspond with its origin. What is its origin? Two possibilities, and it could be either one or the other, or he could have possibly been referring to both. Its origin of this result or condition. The origin obviously is the thought, but the thought is the thought by the individual, and therefore the individual is connected with the universal mind, which is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, all-knowing, all-capable, and everywhere present. So that is the origin of any condition, any result. The other meaning would be that origin means the origin of the thought, and that he means to express here, and that definitely will come clear in further chapters, that definitely is true as well, which is, if you have a clear and precise thought, you will get a clear and a precise result. So if you have a confused thought, a scattered thought, you will get scattered result. So there is a relationship between the condition, the result, and its origin. The quality of the origin will define the quality of the condition. So it could be either one, and it could be the combination of the both. But I wanted to point this out. Every thought, therefore, is a cause, and every condition an effect. For this reason, it is absolutely essential that you control your thoughts so as to bring forth only desirable conditions. It's a very matter-of-fact statement, isn't it? Every thought is therefore a cause, and every condition an effect. With your thoughts, you create cause. You are manifesting cause into a condition, into a result, into an effect. And based on this, it's absolutely essential that we all learn to control our thoughts. That way, by controlling our thoughts, we can also control the conditions and therefore set forth or bring forth only desirable conditions. And this fits very well with my earlier explanation when we look at the original thought, that here we are being reminded once again that if we have clear and precise thoughts, if we learn to be specific in our thoughts, in the quality of our thoughts, then automatically we control the outcome, we control the conditions, and we get them to be what we want them to be. If we want specific outcome, specific results, then we must have specific thoughts. If we have confused thoughts, it will lead to confused conditions. So the whole point about wanting better things in your life is hinging on your becoming aware that it is your thoughts that will control the quality of the conditions, and that you are in control of them, and then the specificity of them, the quality and the specificity of your thoughts, defining the condition outcome. All power is from within and is absolutely under your control. It comes through exact knowledge and by the voluntary exercise of exact principles. All power is from within. All real power is from inside of us and is absolutely under our control. It actually comes through exact, precise, specific knowledge and by the voluntary exercise of exact, specific, precise principles. All power is from within and is absolutely under your control. It comes through exact knowledge via the voluntary exercise of exact principles. The voluntary, by your will, exercise the carrying out. So by you, by choice, carrying out exact principles, that is how things come about. So all power does come from inside of us and is completely and absolutely under our control. It is precisely through exact knowledge and the exact carrying out of the principles that we can exercise that power. And that is in effect the essence of the VIP team as a global online university, is these two elements. On one hand, we need to provide you with exact knowledge, or we need to guide you on a path so that you can discover true understanding, not just a general understanding, but an exact knowledge, very specific, because remember, it is the specificity, the exactness of your knowledge that will define the quality of the outcome. One element, the exact knowledge. The second element, the voluntary exercise of exact principles. And here in this meaning, it definitely is not an exercise in terms of what we would do in the gym or would do as a test, but more exercise in carrying out. So by choice carrying out, a voluntary carrying out of exact principles. What is that saying? It isn't just important to know it, it's also important to apply it. And that truly is the second most important thing for the VIP team, is that our students, our members, not only gain this knowledge, and they get very deep knowledge, a deep understanding, and it is precise knowledge, because there isn't too much negotiation in this matter here. This is very exact scientific knowledge, but then we have to apply it. We have to bring it into daily life to see its application and to see the results. The ultimate crown of VIP is not only that we get knowledgeable students, smart students with this wisdom and with this knowledge, but that we get them to carry it out in precision and with phenomenal results. It should be plain that when you acquire a thorough understanding of this law and are able to control your thought processes, that you can apply it to any condition. In other words, you will have come into conscious cooperation with omnipotent law, which is the fundamental basis of all things. Isn't this very much underlining our potential and our power and our capacity? He says it should be simple, plain and clear that when you get a thorough understanding of this law, the law of causation, the law of cause and effect, and when you can combine that, the understanding of the law of causation, with a capacity to control your thought processes with precision and with only desirable thoughts, that you can then apply it to any condition. And that means you will have come into conscious cooperation with omnipotent law. That then you have built a partnership with universal intelligence. And that right there, the fundamental basis of all things. All things that are in existence, all things that are going to be in existence. So this is going to be the completion for this class, and it's another monumental closing to this class with this last 33rd paragraph, in which he says it ought to be very simple, it ought to be very plain, that when you get the understanding of this law, the law of causation, you need to understand the law, number one. Number two, you need to be able to control your thought processes, control your thinking, control your thoughts. Understanding the law, controlling your thoughts. When you do that, when you can make the marriage between those two, then you can apply it to any condition. That means any condition. Any condition in your business, any condition in your relationships, any condition in your health, any condition in your economic matters, any condition of anything that is important to you. Apply the understanding of the law, apply the capacity to control your thoughts. At that point, in any of those situations, you will go into cooperation, into an active, real cooperation with omnipotent law. Omnipotent law is the universe, is God. You have gone into a partnership with the omnipotent law of the universe. That's pretty exciting. And all you need is two things: understanding of the law, which is obviously what we're doing here in these classes, and then you applying it, coming into control of your thought processes. Phenomenal. Okay, you ready now to listen back to the 5 paragraphs. Do not forget the exercise that is embedded with the first chapter, which is to go sit still on a chair for at least 15 minutes to a half hour and just sit still, eyes closed, same chair, same room. The ability of the individual to think is his ability to act on the universal and bring into manifestation. Human consciousness consists only in the ability of man to think. Walker says, mind in and of itself is believed to be a subtle form of static energy, from which arises the activities called thought, which is the dynamic phase of mind. Mind is static energy, thought is dynamic energy. The two phases of the same thing. Thought is therefore the vibratory force formed by converting static mind into dynamic mind. As the sum of all attributes are contained in the universal mind, which is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, these attributes must be present at all times in their potential form in every individual. Therefore, when the individual thinks, the thought is compelled by its nature to embody itself in an objectivity or condition which will correspond with its origin. Every thought, therefore, is a cause, and every condition an effect. For this reason, it is absolutely essential that you can control your thoughts so as to bring forth only desirable conditions. All power is from within and is absolutely under your control. It comes through exact knowledge and by voluntary exercises of exact principles. It should be plain that when you acquire a thorough understanding of this law, and you're able to control your thought processes, you can apply it to any condition. In other words, you will have come into conscious cooperation with omnipotent law, which is the fundamental basis of all things. And I do hope that you have enjoyed re-listening to the 5 paragraphs for this class number 6, paragraph 29 to 33. And that you have noticed that you have a significant deeper level or a better level or a clearer level of understanding. That is what these classes are all about, is to sort of take the clouds away and give you clarity, give you high definition, clear understanding, exact knowledge. Therefore, that you can then exactly exercise, exactly execute, and get exact results, which the results are the crown and the proof on us having done a great job and you having done a great job. And this completes class number 6 of chapter 1 of the Master Key System, paragraph 29 through 33. Your next class, class number 7, will start with paragraph 34. Well done. And if you have not already done so, definitely do subscribe to the YouTube channel of the VIP team. Simply go to YouTube and type in the VIP theme. Those 3 words will bring you right to the VIP channel. That's where you find the videos. And also do subscribe or become a member of the VIP Facebook group. Both the Facebook group is a great place to ask your questions. You will find also the links there for the Skype groups. If you want them in a specific language, we have about 15 different languages available there in the Skype groups. So that's a great place to ask your questions. In final closing, make sure as you listen to these classes, as you get a good taste of the quality of work that is being done by the VIP team and offered to people all throughout the world, that you get in touch, ask the person who provided you this video, and ask them for their link to the VIP team. With this link, you'll be able to take a tour, and the tour actually will give you $5,000 in demo money, in demo credits, to be able to see how the whole system works. Plus there is a pleasant surprise as well for those people that actually take the complete tour. The tour consists of a number of videos that take you step by step, all short little videos, less than 10 minutes, that take you step by step through what the VIP team looks like on the inside. Sort of like what happens when you step inside of our university. Thank you for listening to this class.